Good evening. Hide your Bibles, and I trust you do if you'll turn to the book of Acts and then join Tony in standing. Acts chapter 23, chapter 22, almost 23. Your Bible does turn 23, actually. Acts 22 and verse 30. It's been a while since we've been here. About as long that we've been here as it has been since Brother Tony was in Acts, in Sunday school. Acts 22 and verse 30 on the morrow, because he would have known the certainty whereof he was accused of the Jews, he loosed him from his bands and commanded the chief priests and all the council to appear, and brought Paul down and set him before them. And Paul, earnestly beholding the council, said, Men and brethren, I have lived in all good conscience before God until this day. The high priest Ananias commanded them that stood by him to smite him on the mouth. Then said Paul unto him, God shall smite thee, thou whited wall. For smitest thou to judge me at the law, and commandest me to be smitten contrary to the law? And they that stood by said, Revilest thou God's high priest? And then said Paul, I wist not, brethren, that he was the high priest, for it is written, Thou shalt not speak evil of the ruler of thy people. But when Paul perceived that the one part were Sadducees and the one other part, or the other Pharisees, he cried out in the council, Men and brethren, I am a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee. Of the hope and resurrection of the dead, I am called in question. And when he had said, there arose a dissension between the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and the multitude was divided. For the Sadducees say that there is no resurrection, neither angel nor spirit, but the Pharisees confess both. And there arose a great cry, and the scribes that were of the Pharisees, the Pharisee part arose and strove, saying, We find no evil in this man, but if a spirit or an angel hath spoken to him, let us not fight against God. And when there arose a great dissension, the chief priest, the chief captain, fearing lest Paul should have been pulled in pieces of them, commanded the soldiers to go down, to take him by force from among them, and to bring him into the castle. Father, we thank today from you and bless them for it. Touch our hearts and our ears tonight. Have your way. Lead us according to your purpose, Lord, and help us that we might understand, we might grow, we might be changed by your word. Jesus' precious and holy name we pray. Amen. I have tried my best, maybe to a fault, to keep this, as we've gone through the book of Acts, rooted in a geographical and historical position, if you will. I think it helps to understand it in a more general way if you understand the totality of what's being said, and so you stay in that place where you are. And so having said that, and it's been a while since we've been here, let me kind of catch you up. I don't have a lot of text tonight, purposefully, and part of it because of what comes next. But what we have gone through as such has been, Acts starts with the ascension of Christ, and then the day of Pentecost occurs, and you start seeing people saved, 3,000, 5,000, such as should be saved, multitude. And the church is blossoming and exploding, if you will. Suddenly, it creates a problem with the church. Quite frankly, you had 120 people in the upper room. These people had 3.5 years of training with Christ, okay? And now they got the Holy Spirit. They have a church, and many of it, to understand, is going out. But they have a church to teach, and to train, and to raise, and to take care of. A big one. We get to the point where Tony is in Sunday school, chapter 6, you have them selecting 7 men to serve the church because of a problem that arose. And very quickly, one of them is stoned. A fellow by the name of Saul of Tarsus is standing there holding the coats and giving consent to the stoning of Stephen. Another one becomes an evangelist and roams around and leaves and winds up in Caesarea Philippi. Caesarea anyway, I can't remember if Caesarea Philippi or not. But anyway, up to Caesarea. And there, Paul has actually visited him a couple of times in his missionary journeys. Having said that, we have Paul. We have seen him. He goes up to Antioch, and there with Barnabas and establishes a church. And from the church at Antioch, they go out on missionary journeys. The first one, he goes out with Barnabas, and they cover a small section of land, come back and give a report of what they've done. On the second missionary journey, my mind's getting sketchy, okay? Paul, let's just say Paul goes out, okay? And he covers part of that same area. It was Paul and Barnabas went separate directions on the second missionary journey because they take the letter from the apostles telling them what the council in Jerusalem had said. And they're showing, and Barnabas went down to the island of Crete where they had gone, and Saul, God moved, and Paul was across what is now the southern portion of Turkey into that area. And then he receives a Macedonian call and goes up into Macedonia and down into Greece, and then comes back and they give a report. On the third missionary journey, Paul again goes out, going to the place he had been before, but has spent this time, because he just barely touched it before, about, I think, a year and a half, it seems like is right, in Ephesus. And then goes around. But actually, it's Ephesus. The Lord lays on his heart. He purposes, he says, that I will go to Jerusalem, and from there I will go to Rome. It's in his heart. Chapter 19, around that area, it's placed in his heart. And he purposes in the Spirit he's going to do this. And then the rest of the journey, everywhere he goes, people are telling Paul, when you go to Jerusalem, your bonds await you. You're going to suffer there, Paul. Don't go to Jerusalem. That's what many of them were saying. Don't go to Jerusalem. It sounds like sage advice, doesn't it? I mean, if what the direction you're going to run into if you're riding motorcycles, and what's out in front of you is a sandstorm, and people telling you you should park here, and you say, but the Lord said I should go that way. But there's a sandstorm. If you go into the sandstorm, you're going to get pelted on that motorcycle with sand. So you should stay here, not go there. But the Lord has told me to go there. That's in some ways what Paul is facing. Everywhere Paul goes, people are telling him, Paul, don't go. Get to Jerusalem. You're going to suffer. And you know we all don't want to suffer. How many wants to suffer? Only one hand went up, back in the back. Will. Maybe he didn't mean that. But understand that as he moves, the closer he gets to Jerusalem, he's being told this constantly. He stops on the way and grabs the elders from Ephesus. He down, I think Miletus down is where he's at. And he pulls the elders from Ephesus down to pray with him and tell them what's going on. And they have sorrow in their heart because he said, I may never see you again. He goes to Jerusalem. And there he goes and he meets with James. And St. James says, listen, there's trouble in the city. There's people here accusing you of some things that we know is not true. We want you to do this right here to kind of prove it so that people can see that this is what they're saying is not accurate. So he goes through that process. But while he's completing that process in the temple, those men who had been accusing him point him out and said, that's him. The one who is troubling, who is causing the problems, the one who is going everywhere and bringing Gentiles in the temple and saying that the law doesn't matter at all and saying that all this is hogwash. And I'm paraphrasing, okay? But that's him. Men of Israel help. And they drag him out into the streets and began to kick him and to beat him. And when the chief captain of the guard in Jerusalem, the Roman court, finds out here's the trouble, he comes out to arrest Paul, because obviously he's the one that's doing all the evil because everybody is beating on him. His beating has been such that he has trouble walking. It is stated in that scripture that they had to help him up some steps because he was being born of two soldiers, although he couldn't carry himself. And so he stops at the top of the steps, asks permission in Greek of the chief captain to speak to the people, who was surprised. He thought he was that Egyptian who was causing some trouble. And he turns and he begins to speak to the people in Hebrew. And they gave him ear for a long time until they came to that word Gentile. You realize that you're a Gentile, and that very fact that you're a Gentile is offensive to some people? He came to that word Gentile, and they closed their ears and wouldn't hear him anymore. The chief captain tried to figure out what's going on, decides to bring him into the castle, and I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're just going to go ahead and beat him, make him loosen his tongue. You know, before we even ask him a question, let's go ahead and beat him, just loosen his tongue a little bit. Because sometimes people have tongues that's kind of hard to talk, so we'll just beat him and loosen his tongue. And in the process, Paul says to the guy who's supposed to be doing the beating, who is in charge of the beating, you're gonna beat me, a Roman, without a trial? And he hears that, and he goes and tells the chief captain, listen, this guy's a Roman. And the chief captain comes and talks to him and says, you know, how'd you come by this position in the Roman? He says, he said, I came to it by a great price. Paul said, I was born to it. That basically brings us where we are. And so what the chief captain has done at this point, he has decided that he's going to take Paul and bring him back before the Sanhedrin, this time with a guard, okay? We're not going to just put him there. They can just have their way. We've got a guard with him. And they bring him before Paul before the Sanhedrin because he wants to find out the truth of the matter. I applaud the chief captain. I do. He wants to know the truth. He wants to know what's going on. I don't always applaud his methods, but I applaud the fact that he wants to know the truth. And he brings him before the Sanhedrin, and Paul, seeing himself before another court as such, and also being a preacher, and seeing an opportunity to speak, he begins to speak and says, I have always done what I thought was right in the sight of God. And having said that, the high priest Ananias commands someone close by to smite him. And I'm going to tell you something. Paul spoke out in anger. I don't know if you know that or not, but he did. Thou white as wall. And I want you to understand something else. He may not have been paying a whole lot of attention. Because I'm thinking the high priest was probably dressed in a way that identifies him as high priest. So he may not have been paying a whole lot of attention to be smitten and trying to talk and trying to, for no reason. Understand, again, there is no reason for this. Paul has done nothing wrong. Yeah. It just like what you were talking about in Sunday school, just like I was talking about in the message, it's a lynch mob. There is no reason for this. The same thing was true of Christ's trials. There was no reason for that. There was nothing to bring a charge against them. It was just that they didn't like him, didn't like what he was preaching, didn't understand and didn't agree, and they wanted to do something about it. Peter's up late. And so here we are. And he smites. And then Paul seeing the opportunity. Because he looks at him, okay, that's not going to work. I can't talk to them. They're not going to listen. They're going to just, the captain's really not going to find anything out here anyway, okay? And Paul looks around, he realizes, Pharisees and Sadducees, don't be offended that I did that way, okay? You could be Pharisees and Sadducees, and you could be none of them, okay? But listen, there's a problem. Just like did you know that you can go to a revival service even this week? It's going to be on tape. I'm going to have to manage to pull some hair off. Even this week, there are people in here from other denominations. And it would have been very easy for somebody to have taken a thought and charged the situation with a disagreement and destroyed the power of God in me. That's the reason why in part when we got denominations. We were focused on the differences and not. And it's easier to worship the people you agree with, by the way. So anyway, here we are in this hall, this council, and the chief priest trying to find out what's going on. It's a waste of time. So Paul looks and he says, "Oh, by the way, I'm a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee, and the reason why I'm here is because I'm being charged with the idea of speaking about the resurrection." I want you to hear the way he says it. There's a certain point there that I'm leaving out, and I want to remind you of it. Well, no, that's really what it says. Of the hope and resurrection of the dead, I am called in question. He refers to it in two different ways, but the same thing in two different ways. The hope of the resurrection. And so here they are. The Sadducees, as it says here, don't believe in the resurrection. They are quite, they're quite dead. Physically. Not physically, but spiritually speaking. They don't believe in the resurrection of the dead. They don't believe in any afterlife at all. They don't believe in spirits. God is spirit. They don't believe in spirits. They don't believe in, so therefore they don't believe in angels or demons. They believe only what is here, present now. That's the Sadducee. That's the reason why so many people say they are Sadducees, because they have no hope of the resurrection. They have no hope of eternal. There's nothing but this. That's all they believe in. And so when Paul brings that up, the Pharisees say, well, he's not anything wrong with him. He's a good man. That's a great thing. We believe in the resurrection. If a spirit is moving him, let the spirit alone. You don't want to mess with that. Kind of like Gamaliel this morning. And the Sadducees are like, you know, and there rises this great roar in the building. And people are kind of close to Paul, and because they're afraid that he might be pulled asunder, the chief priest comes in and he removes him from the hall. And then while Paul is sitting in the cell, God speaks to it. In verse 11. The night following, the Lord stood by him and said, "Be of good cheer, Paul, for as thou hast testified of me in Jerusalem, so must thou bear witness also at Rome." Be of good cheer. You remember that promise, that thing you purposed in the Spirit you would do back in verse chapter 19? That you would go to Jerusalem and from there you'd go to Rome. You're going to do it. It's a promise, Paul, that I make to you. Be of good cheer. They're going to beat you. You're going to be shipwrecked. You'll get bit by a very poisonous snake. You're going to sit in prison for most of the rest of your life. Under house arrest is part of it. Have a little free time in the morning. But be of good cheer. You get to stand before Caesar, and and preach the gospel to him. You get to stand before Felix and Agrippa and preach the gospel to them. You get to stand before heads of state and tell them about me. Listen, there's at one point, Paul writing one of his letters, he says, in the household of Caesar greet thee. Do you know what that means? Paul has had an impact into the very house of the Caesar of Rome. Be a good cheer. You're going to do much. You may not be able to walk very well right now, Paul, because of the beat. You may suffer a lot, but you're not going to die. Not yet. I've got something for you. I was thinking about that. And when we sang that first song, Standing on the Promises, I thought about the verse. Promise. I thought about how Paul, sitting in the cell, maybe a little bit despaired a little bit, thinking, Lord, I want to go to Rome, but I don't know that I ever get out of this cell. The Bible says there he stood beside him. I know by the testimony of some here that the Lord has come and stood beside you. So to tell you, asking you if you know what that's like, I already know the answer from you. You know what it's like to have him stand beside you. So he says he stood beside him and told him, be of good cheer. You're going to do it, Paul. I'm satisfied that at this point that Paul is strengthened. There's something that probably comes across him at this point. He probably set up a little straighter. A song probably came to his heart. A prayer to his lips. He thanked God. That's what I think he did. I'm going to close a little differently, so if you will, let's all stand for a moment. I'm going to pray, and then we're going to do something different. Paul, we thank you today for your blessings, Lord. Paul, we thank you for your promises. Have your way. God, my heart and my mind, according to your will. I trust, Lord, you're in now. Jesus, precious and holy name we pray. Amen. Be seated for a moment, if you will. I have a thought on my mind that I think is not part of the message, but it's part of the message, okay? I was sitting, actually, part of it has been on my mind for a while, how to do it, when to do it. I hadn't really known. And I think now's the time and now's the place. I had thought over time that about picking out someone, and as a church, let's pray for them. And y'all mentioned OJ this morning, his statement. I was reminded of that, Paul. This is what I want you to do. Well, ask your faith. Brother Bud is getting some strength back. This pacemaker is helping his heart. I can testify it makes a lot of difference the way your heart pumps. Mine's doing so much better. I feel so much. I told Keith Floyd go. I told Sybil, I feel better right now than I have felt in 2.5 years, and I'm not well yet. I'm not, my muscles feel, that I have hit so many walls, but I feel like I can move now. I feel like I can move forward. And I feel like I can finally get to that 90-95% that they're talking about I should be at. The heart pumping right makes a difference. I do not doubt at all that that bud till one day sit right there again. I would ask you to pray for that effect. But as much as I would love to see him here, and as much as he would like to be here, that is not what's important. I want you also to pray for OJ. The day that Christ brings Bud, puts him in that bench right there, right beside him is OJ. I want you to pray the Lord touch his heart. This is really what I want you to do. I want you to pray that the Lord will show himself to him. That he would reveal himself to OJ. Just like the Lord revealed himself to Jacob. I don't think Jacob had a grasp of who God was until that day at the creek when he got touched on the hip and got his limb. And I want you to pray that. And every time you stop this week, every time you say prayers, I want you to pray for OJ. Every moment you have an opportunity, when you're driving on a road, when you're over your meal, whatever the case, I want you to stop. I want you to pray for OJ. And I want you to focus on that, but I don't want you to stop there. Right behind that, I want you to pray for Lily and Jason. They went to church this morning. That's important. That's a first step. You know that nothing will ever be done about sin in my life unless I become sick of it. So I want you to pray for Lily and Jason as well. And I want you to pray the Lord how they're away. I want you to pray that God will reveal himself to them as well. There's the third person I want you to, the fourth person, if you will, Lily and Jason's too. The fourth person I want you to remember. Every time you pray, every time opportunity avails itself, every time you just have a moment where it's quiet. Now, and I would invite you to turn your radio off in the car and spend that time praying. I want you to pray for Derek. I want you to pray that God would reveal himself to him as well. You want to see this little church grow again? Always, if you see Derek get back in church and get his heart right and start living for Christ, you see OJ back in church, his heart right, living for Christ. If you see Lily and Jason in church, with their hearts right for Christ, living for him, you reckon that would give you a boost? Reckon I give you a little shot in the arm, as they say? Now, Lily and Jason went to church this morning. They didn't come here, which is fine. They may not be here if they can, but we need to pray for them nonetheless. It'll do a world good for keeping Irene. If there's a world good that's done for them, they'll do a world good for us. And as we can take people off this list, this little short list, we can add people to it. But I guarantee you, it is God's will that whosoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. It is his will that none should perish. He states it clearly in his word. And you're praying according to his will. You pray this. And you're not praying, listen, you're not really praying even for, how does it say it in James, you pray amiss, sitting upon your own lust. You're not praying that way either. This is God's will, plain and simple. You really will bear no benefit physically from this. It's not your own lust that you'll be benefiting, it's the kingdom of God. And I would challenge you this week, next week, the week after. It may take a while. I'll be honest with you. It could be next Sunday. You start seeing fruit. But it may take a while. But if you're faithful, continue to pray. for these, just these right here alone. They're very specific, we know who they are, and when they darken the door and set down this building, we know what has happened. I want you to pray. Three, 2, 1.
Praise the Lord.
Ain't God good?
All the time.
And all the time?
God is good.
Amen. Brother Tony, you want to begin this process and pray?